Hello guys, welcome back. This is a quick snap of the altar, and what I wanted to talk about was, we've already covered, like, you can get a lot of signs from Loki. Like, I had the crow today, and the crow was, like, 4 or 5 feet from me. And this is the one on this altar. And went up, and we did the, market twice. They call it a craft show, but, I always end up calling them flea markets. And we did stuff today, like I did what I do every day, and then, like, towards the end of the day, I realized I'm, like, feeling terrible. I'm, like, mentally and physically feeling terrible. And I wanted to do my VR. I wanted to do my nature treks. And as I'm going out for the VR, I'm feeling worse and worse and worse because I've been struggling with not buyer's remorse. I've really, really enjoyed it. It's really been essential to my well-being, but feeling I didn't deserve it. And there is a really good line in one of the books where I believe the Lokean in question says to Loki they don't deserve his love. And he's like, well, he doesn't deserve Satan's love. It has nothing to do with what you deserve. It has to do with what makes you happy. I'm probably pretty sure he did not quite make that point in the book, but it's close enough. And as I'm playing this, the nature treks, I go in and there is this new environment and I am so happy. And it's a environment set in Asia, and it's not specific to like any one culture, but it has things like the Fu creatures, and they look like Fu, maybe lions. And they're guarding this gate, so you were entering this spiritual space that was guarded, and it was beautiful because you're going through this bamboo forest, and there are these gorgeous trees, and you could go on the river. And there were what I'm going to call Inari gates. They might have another name. But there are those red gates that there's the curved part on top, and then there's the 2 red posts. They had those, and there were tigers. Beautiful, gorgeous tigers that you could pet. And there was one tiger guarding this 4-point stone. I'm trying to think of the word for it. I can't, but I think it's like partly for the ancestors. And I was just feeling, it was so beautiful, but I was feeling so bad about it because I was thinking, I don't deserve this. And Loki's like, well, we're going to address that right now. And Loki will make us address the bad things we're doing to ourselves, because I've been letting myself feel guilty, and I've been beating myself up for having this, because I felt I did not deserve it. I did not deserve to have the new computer. I didn't deserve to have the VR. I certainly didn't deserve to be able to go in and relax and let go of my stress, because I realized as he was working with me in that environment, I felt I deserved the stress. And then we started working backwards. And as we worked backwards, I thought I served the stress because I had been carrying around a lot of what Bio Dad said, and I'd been carrying around a lot of guilt for things that were like totally beyond my control. And I'm no more horrible than the next witch. I haven't done like really horrible things, and I had to let that all go. And the tigers are very symbolic. Tigers are very symbolic of many things in Chinese culture, and one thing that they can symbolize is ferocity. And I had been being ferocious to myself. I had been feeling like a tiger, like I was lashing out, kind of at Loki, and lashing out at the gods, and kind of like lashing out at myself most of all, because we usually attack ourselves first. And I had told him I felt out of control. So Loki can get us to that place where we can realize what's wrong with us, because, it was no coincidence that I went in today and there was tiger. Boom, right in my face, tiger. No tigers for the rest of the entire game, just to be clear, tiger. And there were really no other animals. There were no fish, there were no They were like little tiny birds, but, you know, it was not to detract from the majesty of the tigers. And no, there were no Inari foxes flying around. But we can get in, as it was said in a TEDx talk, we can put ourselves in the supermax of our own mind. We can put ourselves in prison 24/7, and I think you all know what I'm talking about, because you're like, I thought I was the only one, right? And maybe our prison, you know, we're putting ourselves up there because of what people said in our past. And maybe we feel angry, or we feel sad because of something that happened, or, you know, we're angry because of something that happened, or we're depressed. And we can be our own worst critics and our own worst judge. I mean, we don't only put ourselves in that supermax prison. We believe in torture as well, and we keep beating ourselves up every day. And that is not what Loki comes into our lives for. He does not come in to watch us make ourselves suffer. He comes in to bust us out of prison. And, you know, he's trying to bust us out of prison. There we are, holding on to the bars of this prison we built ourselves. And saying, no, I have to be here. I have to suffer. I have to pay for what I've done. And like, he's just looking at us like, if anyone has to pay for what they've done, dear. And he's waiting for us to realize that these are self-imposed prisons. And the universe doesn't act like that. The gods don't act like that. The gods don't want us setting up supermax prisons in our minds and living in them. And feeling that I must suffer forever for what I've done. Because it does no good. It does no good to anyone you feel was wronged. It does no good for you if you feel you were wronged. And it can be hard, and it can be scary to leave that prison cell because, you know, there's a reason why we have so many songs about, you know, misery and how it's, you know, comfortable and it's familiar and, you know, sadness and anger and everything. Because most humans tend to live in that area. We tend to live in that negative emotion area, and then we wonder why we get like a lot of the ailments we have that have to do with feeling negative all day, and then of course we're going to feel terrible at the end of the day. And I only really noticed it in myself because Loki brought it up, and Loki's like, you want to know why you're feeling like crap at the end of the day? You want to know why you have such a bad self-image right now? Because you're beating yourself up all day long. How many, you know, and he wasn't yelling, but he was really frustrated because he hates to see us hurt ourselves. He hates to see her hurt ourselves. And when you put yourself in that prison, it's just the same as if you had any other self-destructive habit. It's just the same as if I went back to drinking, or if you know, used to self-harm, like by cutting or something, and you went back to that, or whatever. It's just the same as putting ourselves back into that environment. And he doesn't want that for us. He doesn't do well with guilt. It's often been said he doesn't do well with guilt because he doesn't think it's a useful response. He thinks fixing what you broke is a useful response. And if you can't fix what you broke, as he's told me from Skullduggery Pleasant, now you've learned the lesson, now proceed accordingly. You know, don't do it again in the future. Because he's very common sense. He's not, you know, the Old Testament Jehovah yell at you and thunder at you from on high and how dare you be a human and screw up. He has screwed up quite a lot himself. And I am saying that from the most loving place possible. You know, the longer you walk with him, maybe sometimes he will give you some advice and something went wrong, something he just did not foresee. And that doesn't mean be scared of Loki's advice, by the way. 99.99999% of the time it's going to be fine. But sometimes because we put ourselves in those supermax prisons in our head, and we throw ourselves in solitary, which we would consider inhumane for like the worst prisoner on the planet. We would not do that to the worst human being on the planet, but we'll do it to ourselves because we don't have the mercy and compassion for ourselves that we should. And who was it? Was it RuPaul that said, if you don't love yourself, how are you going to love anyone else? And that's true. It's not said from a touchy-feely point. You do have to learn to love yourself. You have to learn to accept yourself. Whether it's like all the baggage I had to accept my past, to accept, being pansexual and gender fluid, and to accept, as you transition out Christianity into Wicca or pagan or wherever you go, to accept that that's all okay and that's where you're meant to be. I felt absolutely zero compulsion when I was in that church to go upstairs and get to meeting or something. That's just not my path. I'm glad it's there for other people. I am, but it's not my path. And so what was funny is that after we did this work, after we did this, letting go work and everything, and I checked the weather. We were supposed to have record icy cold temperatures today and like for the next couple weeks. And it's going to be in the 40s and 50s. Now, I am not saying by any stretch of the imagination that Loki turned the weather around. I mean, he's pretty darn amazing, he is. But, I'm not saying like he, automatically fixed the weather for me because I did work that needed to be done. But I am saying that, it's not always going to be as bad as we think it's going to be. We think it's going to be terrible coming out of that supermax we set up, or we think it's going to be terrible to forgive ourselves because we think we have to suffer forever. But it's not going to be. And it's not, selfish to forgive yourself. It's actually very, very more for the betterment of mankind because, if we go around feeling guilty and feeling like crap, we can't really be useful members of society. We can't really get out of our own headspace and help other people because then we're the friend on Facebook that's always like, why me? My life has been so hard. Allow me to get out the world's tiniest violin and play you the song of my people. And, nobody wants that friend and nobody really wants to be that friend. So we can work with Loki bit by bit, and if we have to go get therapy, or we have to be on medication, or we have to see someone, that is fine as well. If you need to go get churching, or you need to go to a temple, or you need to go work with Buddha or whoever, do it. Life is far too short to put ourselves in that supermax in our head. And Loki does love his people. He can be a little goofball at times, and he can seem aloof at others and everything else. But at the end of the day, when he sees his people hurting, or his children, or however you like to think of yourself, he will be the first one to come in and be like, okay, I've given you time to learn the lesson on your own, and it's not working. So kind of go back to the fox metaphor. Papa Fox will pick the fox up, carry the little cub for as long as he needs to. So I hope that helped. And, if you like what you see, like, comment, subscribe. It took me about 7 or 8 recordings to get to that. And I still don't think it was quite as tight as it could have been. But it's really complex to unpack something that's universal to every human being on the planet. We all do it. But when we go to put it into words, it's almost impossible to say, but it was not even my words. It was from a TEDx talk about putting yourself in the supermax in your own mind. So, yeah, you have Loki's total permission, and I'm not speaking for Loki here, but you have Loki's total permission to let yourself out of prison, to stop beating yourself up because you're not doing you any good. You're not doing me any good. You're not doing society any good. You're not doing anyone you feel you've wronged any good. And to get out there and be a productive person. It's not easy. It's not easy coming out of the prison cell. It's not easy saying, I can stop beating myself up. Because that goes against our culture. But it's true. Don't worry about what our culture says. Let yourself out of prison. Stop putting yourself, in shackles in your own mind. And proceed accordingly. Don't keep, it's okay if you make mistakes, but don't keep making the same mistakes when we know better. And then bit by bit, little by little, we start realizing we don't have to go back into lockup ever again. So I hope that helped, guys. If you like what you see, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.